Howdy, folks. It is Monday, January 16th, 2012. It's Martin Luther King Day. I'm Skip Ruddertail, your otter editor. With me, as always, is...
Toonces, the in-school cat today, actually, for where I'm from. Now, just as an anecdote, where I'm from, they decided they just have to give everybody the day off for the first day of Buck season, because otherwise, who's going to show up to school anyway? So, they have to make up for it for one of the days we wouldn't be in school, so,
I thought deer season was
MLK
in
Jr.
the fall or something.
Well, yeah, but, it's in school, so at some point in the year, they need to bring in a day that we would have been out otherwise. They won't. That's the only holidays they would compromise was MLK Jr.
Yeah. I know, when I went to Kenyon, which was out in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and out in the country and, off the hills, farms and woods and stuff. And basically they told us during the, week? I think it was a week, maybe it was 2 weeks of deer season every fall. They basically said, don't go walking off campus because you could get shot, by somebody. And they're always that. Every year
dangerous.
There's always people that, people are so, geared up to... see a deer and get it. That I think it's very easy for your mind to get
it's
tricked.
very common where I'm from, too. It's just okay, who got shot this year? We had a year this year when nobody got shot in the woods. Hey!
Hooray!
Hey, the woods were safe. Cool.
I think we should, celebrate buck season in a furry way. So that means,
What if you could
I'm going to go try to bang a deer.
What if you could only jerk it to animals, in certain parts of the year?
Wow.
Between January.
I was meaning
January and March, you could be into the otters, and then after the otters
now
came
that
out
you
of fashion,
now that you said that, I want to make it clear that I'm going to try to bang a furry deer, not an actual deer.
You were not talking about that Whitest Kid sketch.
Right.
That's why that's on your mind. We were talking about that earlier.
No, a furry deer. So yeah, it's buck season. All right.
Buck season. That sounds good, but
all right. And it's like the old joke about why'd they call Bambi's mom 99 cents
what?
in the forest? Because she's always under a buck. But
This is also the first episode in which we will be entirely distracted by a football game the entire time.
Yes.
If you hear me randomly cheering, it's because the football game is much more exciting than what's going on.
Hey,
here. It's the playoffs.
I'm resentful.
It's the playoffs, but also it's the playoffs.
Are you
Niners,
rooting
Saints.
for the Saints or the Niners?
No, for the Niners. Because the Saints won more recently.
Okay, that's fair enough. I like both teams. That's my thing, but they're not any of my favorite teams, so I can go either way on this one.
Football. I like being aggressively gay about football to my straight friends because it seems like this weird area where we can actually connect. Because when I tell them I like football because it's a bunch of sexy dudes smashing into each other, they always almost invariably go, "Oh yeah, that does make sense. You would like that. That's cool. Cool, yeah."
I love this straight. This is the voice he does every time he does a straight person talking.
That's my reasonable straight person.
They're reasonable straight person, maybe from Brooklyn. No, I know. I remember in marching band in high school. We'd line up to do the halftime show. You usually kind of, most of our shows ended up, we'd march in from the back. So we'd usually be on the visitor side and kind of lining up there waiting to go on. So we'd see all the visitors teams and we'd sit there. I was a clarinetist and yeah, I know.
Right.
But we'd sit there, the clarinetist and we'd go, 38's nice. Looking at butts. I like 7, I don't know about 7, so, yeah.
It's fun to be gay about sports, that's a fact.
It is, yeah.
We have to start this off like a very gay celebration, because it's a
straight story. I know it's a challenge for you, but I appreciate it. I know you're a trooper.
Yeah, well, I try.
This week's story is Car Repair. It's
Chapter
actually
1.
Car Repair Chapter 1, yes. And there is no...
Our first
those of
chapter
you
porn.
looking, Chapter 2 is not out yet. So this is the story as
Really
far as
isn't?
it stands. It is not.
Well, I can only wonder what Chapter 2 involves.
All right. Well, this is the story as far as it stands, Chapter 1. It's kind of interesting too, because basically I said to Cinnamon, do you have a story you want to put up? And he said, let's do this one that I just put up on Sofur, which turned out to be very popular there. And we I kind of said, why this one? And this kind of brings a discussion. I think what does K.M. Hirosaki call them? A marquee character or a nameplate character? There's some authors that have a character that is very tied to their work. When they think of this character, that's what they think of. And
right.
So K.M. Hirosaki, for a time, this was when he was first writing, or first getting known anyway, had a Lin Sing in this Mayor Kintic series, who was sort of maybe supernatural. And that was kind of his, he did several stories involving this character. I don't know, can you think of any others that come to mind? I mean, I wouldn't say Harry Potter, because that's like a whole series.
We get the concept, and I do see it happening with a lot of writers, and like these. But it tends not to be writers I read.
I think you see it more in artists in the community. Probably.
Yeah, it's very evident in artists. I mean, that's true too. But I mean
look at for going way back, look at Terry Smith and Chester. I mean, you're a writer, and you write a lot of short stories, and which are kind of vignettes. Is that something that ever? You've ever thought about doing like a marquee character? Or why do you think authors do this?
Well, one, because it's clearly a marketing gimmick, and it's a good way to get a certain amount of loyalty from a fan base if they clearly resonate with a character, and a character can gather an audience. I mean, it only seems reasonable to bring them back.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, I represents kind of a narrow goal in writing. And I feel like most times after I've written a story, I'm kind of bored with the characters.
You're ready to move on.
Yeah, and then there are characters that I've written multiple times, but that's because they're people who are commissioning the stories.
Well, and I guess maybe you could say the most famous marquee character is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
which is so synonymous with Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
Which and they're
what about
playing
James
on that.
Bond?
Conan Doyle got there you go. There's another good example. But Conan Doyle, famously got so sick of him that he tried to kill Holmes off by throwing him over Reichenbach Falls.
Wow.
And had to bring him back due to popular demand. So there's the life and death of maybe the most famous marquee character of all.
And you think Cinnamon wants to make a marquee character?
Well, no. He has one. To an extent, I think.
What's that?
His Ethan character, who is not in this story, but in several other stories Cinnamon has done, which are also tend to be, not always, but tend to be straight, or at least mostly straight stories, and Ethan's kind of an asshole. And a thug.
Oh.
And this was something when Cinnamon and I were talking about what story do you want to do. One of the reasons he wanted to do this story is because it doesn't feature Ethan. And he told me one of the interesting things, he'd been writing Ethan so much lately that it was a little hard. He kept having to kind of back off, Pearson?
Pearson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the guy in the story. Or Chad.
Chad
or Pearson, as you like
Chad Jameson or something.
Yes, Chad Jameson, which is a great porn name.
Is it?
It's such a stereotypical porn name, that's why I approved. But, he kind of had to back off his aggressiveness a little bit, because Cinnamon said, I'd been writing this other character so much in maybe similar situations that I kept saying, wait, this is what Ethan would do, not what Pearson would do. So I thought it was interesting, thinking about this idea of marquee characters, and then that's maybe one of the pitfalls of it, is you get so in the mode of thinking like this character
that
it's hard
voice.
to separate. Right, it's hard to separate how you write from this character at a certain point.
But even then, I'm still kind of penned in anyway, because I feel like the only voice I ever express in my stories is my own. Just like I kind of force it through different characters, which I don't know. One thing I want to work on, but I don't know. The marquee character things seems
I think that's in anthropology, that's one of the things we realize with the postmodern critique is that you're never going to separate what you produce from yourself.
No, I don't even mean it like that. I just mean like I feel as if I only have one tone of writing, and especially when I'm writing in the first person, and I feel as if it's kind of what almost comes across as my natural speaking style.
Uh-huh. Well,
which
you
is
have
extremely
a very verbose jouissance, the playfulness.
Because people like always say in my stories that's like I like throw so many images and stuff into it, but I feel like this is how I actually talk.
Well, you're playing. We'll get to talk. I don't want to say too much because we have a little surprise for our listeners coming up.
It's not like a
well, I won't
surprise.
say what's not
cool.
a surprise, so I'll just say it. But
whatever.
We'll have a new story next week. So next week, we will have a new story up, of course.
Well, more important,
and that's normal.
We're gonna have a guest. We're gonna have a guest host next week.
Right. In 2 weeks, Bun and I will be in Colorado, visiting my family, doing some skiing. So, I won't be here in 2 weeks to record, but I'm going to bring my microphone with me. And Soren and I, who's read for us and had a story in here, Soren and I are going to host the podcast.
We're becoming a regular fraternity.
We are becoming a regular, and a regular,
which is hot.
Yeah, we've been drinking our fiber.
Let me just sneak the Smirnoff Ice on you. Hold on.
Right. Oh no.
I
will confess that speaking of Bros Ice and Bros, Bun does actually like Smirnoff Ice.
It's
so if you did
like
that to him, he'd be like, "Thanks." And where's the fun?
I wouldn't be like, drink, bro. I'd be like, have your shitty beer is what I'd do. Like,
there you
here,
go.
you can have this. That's what I'd say.
He says what he tells me if he needs me to pick up that or hard lemonade. He's like, yeah, pick up some girly drinks for me.
Some girly drinks.
Girly drinks. Yeah. But the story we'll be discussing, since you won't be there, we'll be recording Colorado. We thought it'd be fun to read one of your stories. And then Soren and I will discuss it, because that's the only way we could do it. Toonses obviously writes a lot of great stuff, and we never get to talk directly about it, because you'd be talking about yourself, and it's not the same. It's not as...
It'd be... But is that what I usually do, though? I mean...
It's more like... Then it's like inside the actor's studio, and I don't want to do that, right?
No.
So we want to... so this is the way we get to talk about
I think it's fair
stories.
to give you guys just a shot to, take shots at me. And I'd like to hear the criticism more than anything. I mean... being self-reflective and all, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So,
and I think it's fair just to give you and everyone else a chance to take shots, because I've taken more than a few at the people who have written for us.
You have. So,
I try to be nice
we took some
about
good ones
but...
at Soren, so this is could be revenge.
Did I? Oh wait. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right.
Could be. No, he actually wrote in, and we were talking on IM. He didn't write it. Typed. And said that it was actually the critique we gave was really useful, and he was nodding along and making notes. So we did a good job, apparently. There.
That's good.
So
okay,
it's good.
Well,
but this could be a little revenge. So we'll see what happens. So I won't say any more about your writing style, because I want to save up some good stuff for a couple weeks. But so yeah, let's kind of get in to the story, which kind of continues this little thread we've explored this month in sort of heightened or over the top masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a gay story with these very over-the-top masculine guys.
Yeah.
So here's a straight story. And I think that's maybe an interesting conversation point to start with, is how masculinity is read in a gay or straight context.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, one of the comments you made to me earlier when we were kind of, on the car ride up here and, shooting the shit, was, I don't know, is this sexist or what's going on in this story? And that's a really good question, and maybe you want to say, not without putting you on the spot or saying that's what you actually feel, but how do you think this might be, or why might this be read as sexist in your mind?
But can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you on BC?
Oh, see? I love that. That was great. Birth control. We can get into that.
I mean, yeah, birth control is great. Everyone should use birth control, but it's clearly, to a man's credit if a lady is on birth control. So, hey, I don't have to wear a condom now.
No.
I mean, yeah, okay.
Clearly, this is a world, too, where we're not... Like many furry worlds, and honestly, this is what most people are writing in, and most of your stories, where people aren't worried about STDs. So let's leave that discussion aside for a moment.
I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the fact that more or less it's the impregnation thing, the impregnation fetish that always disconcerts me, because I think like straight people are allowed to get away with having those fucked up like fetishes, and it's just like culturally accepted. Like the impregnation thing is.
And I think maybe I've said this on the podcast before. If I haven't, I will now. I kind of dig the impregnation. I'm a little bit of a fan of that fetish myself, and I know, and I understand, why you're freaked out by it. Bun is too, and his response is like, he
it's
immediately goes
creepy.
to, what are the actual real world consequences of this person getting pregnant?
Yeah, that's what I think too.
And that's always an interesting thing to me when one is reading porn, is like, where is the line? Because I think we all have that line. Like, where is the line?
I want to qualify this. I don't think it's like bad for someone to find that hot, because I don't think like.
Thank you. I'm validated.
I just want to say, like, there's also feel like certain things are going to just naturally rub against other people. I mean, like, certain things I find hot, I wouldn't even expect other people not to like feel and just immediately like kind of cringe at, because I mean, it's these things are kind of squicky, as they say, like heavy bondage or something like that. I mean, I'm sure some people might look at heavy bondage and just immediately have a deep claustrophobia or fear of kidnapping or something. I don't know, just whatever, just completely bristle against them. And you know what? I'm not gonna like go, well, maybe you should just relax about it. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. But I just think that. Yeah, like the real world consequences. People don't think about the real world consequences, and they don't think about them in the real fucking world, as demonstrated by the totally unacceptable amount of out of wedlock children in our society.
Here's my response is, it's a porn story, and one of the roles I think of porn stories is to think about things in an impractical sense. Much of the time. Sense. Yeah. Right. This is like you wrote a story the other day about like, let's all, guys in the sauna.
No, but to compare it then, it'd be like to me if maybe I were to write a story about like a bug chasing story. And that would really kind of disconcert me.
That would. No, I think we all have our lines as to, at what point is this too serious for us?
And to me, the impregnation part is the line within the cuckolding kink, which I kind of dig. I dig the cuckolding thing. And the impregnation is where that line is for me. Yeah, and see,
for me it isn't. For me it'd be further.
But even then, no.
If we're reading, a cuckolding story, where I find it hard is if it is so relentlessly cruel at a certain point,
but I also
which is a fuzzier line.
But there's the impregnation kink. There are plenty of impregnation stories where people are within a committed and like immediate relationship. Yeah. I still find that creepy.
Yeah.
I just find the whole concept creepy. That's what I mean. That's what I wanted to qualify.
Part of the reason why you're
That's what I wanted to qualify. It's not the whole like moral issues of like getting another guy's woman pregnant or somebody out of what. It's like, no, it's the actual physical thing of like making someone carry a child, which kind of creeps me out.
That's that's and I think that's valid. But I think it's kind of interesting to think about. I think we all have those points where it's like, what thing that they're doing, is this too serious? To be in a porn story. I think
which
one of the ones
we need to talk about WRAPE.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Because I was raped recently.
But and I've certainly come across that in stories, or where they're going along and I'm like, oh yeah, this is hot, and then something happens where it's like, this is too. All of a sudden, this topic or this idea it's not hot anymore. It's too serious. It's too much. It's too extreme what they're doing.
Just been dialed back.
Like when somebody's having a crazy affair and then they get caught and their life blows up. Like I'm like, okay, I don't need to see. I don't need to hear about their divorce or the cops or whatever. Like that's not hot anymore. Like we've gone and you'll read stories like that. So I think it is probably for some people. It is maybe the part of the appeal is the getting caught and the repercussions. So I think we all have our kind of, where is that line? So it's interesting to think about. But, so I mean, on the sexist thing though.
Well, I feel like I would be more open to criticism from the more sexually liberated feminists who would argue that, well, there's no reason a woman can't, desire a big dick or something like that, which would be my next criticism. But the only thing the lady in this story wants is dick in her motorcycle fix.
Right. And which I could argue in a third wave feminist sort of way is kind of liberating. And this is an argument that you see back and forth, about porn in general from feminists. But is this kind of just naked, like, here's exactly what she wants, and she's not in it for any other reason.
But doesn't he also just kind of like manipulate her too, because she comes into the bathroom and she's like, oh wait, I didn't know he wanted like me to whip it out. I thought he was gonna like just like show me. And it's like, yeah, that actually does seem like kind of manipulative.
That's kind of fun, but that's one of these now. But see, I can you writing a story like that where a big guy is like telling the little guy to pull it out, and you'd think, oh, that's hot.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be sexist because it's not. It's because not like inter.
Right.
It's not intergender.
It's interesting. I mean, it's one of the things to think about. Is if you took two guys in the same story, right? But
what if you took a lady doing it to the dude? What if you took the lady like taking a shy guy into the bathroom and telling her like, well, I thought you were gonna take my panties.
And it's different because you can never separate these things totally from the overall, in this case, gender power dynamics of the culture we live in. Right. And so even you are always reading the story in the context of our cultural milieu. You're always reading the story in the context of the. So a little. I don't find it particularly sexist. I can see how that reading would be. The only thing that maybe I find could be is that little bit right at the end, where Ernest, is like, get in here, and chapter 2 to come, which I kind of feel like, she's going to get in trouble for fucking this guy, but he isn't. Chad isn't going to get in trouble. Right. And that's sexist.
That's definitely sexist.
That's definitely sexist. So that was the thing that actually struck me as most potentially sexist in this story. Because otherwise I kind of felt, they're both playing off kind of tropes and roles. And so there is that. But overall it's it's a negotiation. They're both doing something they want to do. And so it didn't. Right. It wasn't enough to ever make me uncomfortable. Anyway, let's put it that way.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wicked gay.
Yeah. From Boston now.
For the people listening on the show, I'm kind of like nodding my head to the side and shrugging my shoulders. What are you gonna do about it?
Those of you paying for the television feed, need the explanation. It's only $7.95 for the first minute and 95 cents afterwards. But we are totally naked.
What? No, don't tell them that. People will believe that stuff.
I know. They're gullible. It's a gullible audience. I love that little segment, not just aside, I love that little section on Candlestick Park, left over from the baseball days, where it's like the little, like
a little notch.
The little
notch.
Like
a snaggletooth.
Yeah, it looks like they might actually have people sitting in there today, and they don't normally. But, it's a playoff game. Anyway. One of the things I liked about this story, I read most of Cinnamon's stories, and I don't always enjoy them. I always enjoy reading them, but I don't always enjoy the story, because sometimes it's a little uncomfortable for me.
Right.
Because the characters are yeah. And so, like some of the Ethan stories, because Ethan is such an asshole.
Right.
A lot of the time.
And that's just a line you don't like Kevin Cross. Things, like, and it's just someone being an asshole.
It's hot. Well, it's so... He's so an asshole sometimes.
You know what I would say, though?
Yeah.
Fuck up, bitch. I mean, I don't know. Maybe just... I
always read them.
I was raised in a family where anger was, proudly expressed, let's say. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Maybe if you think someone's just being an asshole, I don't know. That's what rubs you wrong.
Well, he's
an asshole. I mean, is it the fact that he's impregnating ladies or something? I mean, the natural thing of impregnation pisses me off. It creeps me out. But someone being an asshole and doing these things isn't any worse.
Here's the thing. Okay, so Pearson and Ethan both have big dongs.
Right.
Right. Ethan constantly humiliates and belittles his partners, whether they're guys or girls. Constantly, just takes them down, and then fucks them or whatever.
Right.
And Pearson doesn't do that. You know, he's not belittle. You know, and I think it's more. You know, and it's an interesting thing. Whereas Ethan is, you know, in the books, in his stories, is kind of presented as very macho and confident, and I don't think he's very confident at all because he is constantly belittling people. Whereas Pearson, it's like the dude has a big dong. He knows it. He doesn't need to say anything
but I thought
or
the
do
guys
any
that
work.
were into the humiliation liked the whole, like the fact that someone's smug prick about it.
I think people.
I thought that was supposed to be the draw, because I know
but
like,
it's.
That's how he told me. That's how he told me to write the guy. That
no, I think you're right. But the thing is, I'm thinking about the actual character himself. You know, and like knowing him in real life or meeting him in real life, is that this is a guy who's so continuously. You know, ready to pounce on people and put them down, that he's probably a really insecure guy. Whereas Pearson,
Ethan?
I feel is a much more like, you know, he's pretty confident and he doesn't need to worry about it or work at it. And he just, you know, kind of lets his body or whatever do the talking, and he's cool with that. And Cinnamon said that was a little challenge to kind of tone Pearson back and make sure he wasn't becoming Ethan.
Right.
And that, you know, he was this more confident guy. But yeah, the humiliation
because
stuff...
some people find the confidence hot.
Sometimes the humiliation thing,
yeah.
that's one of the things I can't always handle. Like, sometimes it's hot. I suppose part of it is, like, me personally as a top, I'm more of a, you know... like quiet, like I know what I'm doing. You're going to find out kind of top rather than a belittling humiliation top.
I think it's just a matter of tone. Where like the idea that you're actively degrading a person, that's hot. But like you know, it's sensitive just in terms of the language that people are going to respond to in a personal way. Just because I mean I don't know, maybe it's just like such a personal thing, but like. I might call you a bitch, and that's not going to like really like I don't know, it just bounces off you, just isn't harsh. I might call someone else a bitch, and like it hits a nerve at the very center of their body, and you know.
I guess you know for me, some of the humiliation stuff, I'm not aroused. I'm angry at them.
Angry
like
at
it gets
really?
me. Yeah, like the guy who's doing me. Like I get mad at him or her when it's a girl doing it. You know,
right.
Whereas it's not hot. It's like I want to go at them,
throttle them.
Yeah. You know, or take them down, or teach them a lesson. There you go. So that make me, I don't know. That's my reaction to it.
I think it's just having a bit of pride in you, basically.
I suppose.
And I would say a lot of the people that have humiliation fetishes don't really have an excess of pride. It seems more like they're insecure themselves.
I'm sure there's some, though, that are kind of the opposite. Like, they're really respected or whatever, and this is an outlet that they can kind of let their hair down and be humiliated because they're not normally. So it could be kind of interesting. Because a lot of porn is an outlet or, extension of things we want to do, I think.
And people like different things for different reasons and so on, whatever.
So I don't know. I know the impregnation thing wasn't your thing, but I like this story because I think it was.
What did you like most? The setting.
He did that really well, actually. I think
the grungy bathroom thing,
but the whole atmosphere. I mean, I can picture.
You can picture that shitty,
perfectly. I can picture where she is. I can picture the garage. Right. I can picture the room where they're waiting in with the vending machine and the air conditioning and the linoleum. I mean, everything was very, very vivid for me. Right,
but we're not saying it wasn't badly written at all. He's a good writer. We know that.
Yeah.
I just don't like bathrooms. Why?
Yeah.
It's certainly not very inventive. I don't know.
That didn't work. I think it was part of for a lot of people going on kind of desires and maybe acting up things one can't do in real life. I think it's the fact that it is kind of this.
So it comes off as natural. It comes off as realistic.
Yeah, but it's something that most people would be like, oh, I'd never have sex in a bathroom. That's gross. But then here it's like, but there's something kind of hot about being so horny that you don't care, and I think that's what's going on here. This is not a good place, really, to have sex, but they're both so, and she
right, and you can only
she specifically is so into it that doesn't matter. That overrides the inappropriateness of a bathroom for sex.
Right, and it just having a whole like dirty,
Which
gross
I kinda
atmosphere
find
is
is
kind of
hot.
masculine in and of itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, it is. Yeah.
I've just never liked bathrooms. I've always told people just don't write porn in bathrooms. I don't know.
Yeah.
Haven't I?
I guess. But you do locker rooms and
That is
and
true. That's
saunas
not,
and stuff.
but they're not as gross.
Locker rooms have bathrooms attached usually.
Yeah, but they're kind of separated by a brick wall that sort of has. I want to point out. I don't want to express too much knowledge of locker rooms because I'm literally wearing a Sandusky camp football.
He really is. He
Sandusky
bought
football.
this off eBay. He bought a Sandusky football camp.
Well, I didn't get it off of eBay. I attended this, but it was
Oh,
weird. They taught us
okay.
to wrestle.
Yeah. Oh dear. So this explains you're filling that stereotype. People are like, oh, so that's why you're gay, right?
I think that's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's more like what the actual idea is. I want to have as many opportunities as possible to humiliate Penn State University,
Uh-huh.
and this is just one way to do it.
That's one of the things that always pisses me off. Where people like I think this is part of the X Game movement, which so many problems there. But, that they're like, oh, we have to look for the reason why you're gay. Because somebody did something. Yeah, that is like part of it is you go back and
Oh, yeah, I've
like,
heard that too. I mean, like,
what, terrible abuse or lack of father or figure or, whatever, what made you gay? And that's the root of your problem.
I chose
This will
to be
help
gay.
you. Yeah, there you go. You looked at the options, they're like, I can't stand impregnation.
Yeah. Yes.
Did I mention that a couple weeks ago that I was reading a story and this girl was like, oh, I'm so impregnable right now.
Did she use that word?
Yes! And I was like, whoa.
I'm so impregnable.
Impregnable does not mean what you think it means, Mr. Author. It's like she's a battleship or something, like, yes, I can withstand direct impacts to my
What would be the actual
womb,
term? What would be like the actual term then?
What would you say in that sentence? I'm so impregnable.
I'm so
fertile right now, I suppose.
No, but I'm like the term able to be.
I mean, she
impregnated.
didn't mean. Yeah, that's what she's trying to say.
But
She's trying to say.
What single word term exists for that?
Fertile, I'd say.
Yeah, but I mean that involves the word pregnant. Like,
no, I don't think there.
But
is
then you have
one.
to use like the suffixes and the prefixes and the Latin
I don't
roots
think
and
there
things
is
like,
one.
oh god damn it, I want to find one now.
Well, you could make one up.
Because that would be.
But yes, no, I mean, impregnable means like you can't get inside it, and that's not how the author clearly meant it from the context, which was have sex now and there'll be babies. So there we go. It was good. I always enjoy these little things when you're browsing stories and you run into wow.
But I always defend straight up fuck ups because I think those are more interesting than anything.
They are, yeah.
And I don't think perfection is all that interesting at all in and of itself. Because perfection is actually rather mundane. If you have perfect grammar in your story, that means like there's only like one way it could be written anyhow.
That's true. I don't know. I interesting. I'm gonna have
You
to
never
think
thought of
about
it that way,
one.
really? Because that's what always annoyed me about the grammar lessons was the rigidity in the sentence structure. And the idea that this is you have to use these things first. You have to use these specific words to connect to these concepts. And you know what? Fuck it. I'll figure out for myself what I want to do. And I always I like reading just comments on the internet because they're always so grammatically fucked up.
Yeah.
The way we talk anyhow is completely fucked. You just look at how people if you ever just look at direct transcripts of people talking, they change. Like tense in the middle of they change tense and number in the middle of their sentences.
Yeah.
Like they completely lose agreements. But that's just how.
And we all
how you
understand
listen
what
to
they're
people.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed one thing that I do. I feel like way too much when I'm going back and editing these, and I think it's Midwestern. I say a lot. Yeah. I say that a lot, and I think it's a Midwestern thing. So anybody who's been pulling their hair out of all the, I apologize right there. I don't think there's anything I can probably do about it at this point. It's kind of how I talk conversationally. It's just how we try to keep these shows. I mean, I'm not up here giving a lecture or anything.
No, it's casual.
Yeah. So they're going to be... Thank you. See, now you're gonna start doing it and then grinning at me.
I always say y'all.
Y'all.
Y'all, that's the one I like.
Y'all's good. Y'all's good.
Y'all's not an affectation. Yins would be.
I like, I've been watching Sherlock started their season 2, and it's not on PBS yet, so I may have, torrented it from England.
Stop sober now.
It's like as soon as it gets here, they've learned. This all started with Harry Potter, but if you remember, the first 3 Harry Potter books came out in England before they came out in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah, I remember ordering the 3rd book from England because it wasn't going to come out in the U.S. for 6 more months.
Oh,
so
wow.
I went on Amazon UK and ordered it, and apparently, like, over 100,000 people did the same thing. So much so that Scholastic started freaking out about it. So starting with the 4th book, they were released on the same day, and were all the rest. Doctor Who, now, for instance, when a new episode airs, so the Christmas special aired same day in the UK, in the US. They obviously haven't learned that with things like Downton Abbey and Sherlock yet, but hopefully they're working on it. But it's one of these things where, yes, as we are in this connected world, like, if you're not releasing on the same... And it's English, it's not like they need to translate it or anything. Release it on the same day. Who cares? So, anyway, that's a little digression.
Nice little rant.
Yep.
Stop soaping now. We were going to talk about rape at some point.
Oh, yes. You coined a phrase this afternoon, which I love. And it's rape. But we'll say it's W-R-A-P. And so what is
that's
rape?
As a writer, being either kind of forced or coerced into writing something you're not really all that comfortable with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was raped by one of my good friends the other day. And they're writing cop rape.
Right, because you don't like police.
Well, yeah, and it's not even like it's not even
a police thing. Police story.
It's also a thing where it kind of crosses that line where I like the thing where, like, I don't really like, people always say, like, oh, I like non-consent, but they really mean, like, oh, I like a guy who's aggressive and doesn't wait for me to say yes. Mm-hmm. But they really like that's kind of what I like too. I just like a guy who's very aggressive and just kind of presumes you're into it because you're not fighting back. But this
everybody taking notes.
This guy wanted to fight back. And to me, like, fighting back is the line where it kind of shows, like, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, yeah. So I had to write that, and so I was raped.
Uh-huh.
But
so there you go, folks.
But even then, doesn't it start to question the line of, like, because there are lines where, like, you couldn't convince me to write these things either. Yeah. So, like, it's actually more like a gray area, isn't it?
It is. No, I think it's usually, for most folks, they have the things that they will never draw or write or read, even. When we have those keywords, we're like, ugh. Yeah. And then there are those things that, if they're written in a certain tone or presented in a way, they will read them.
Yeah.
But won't. So, and I've read, like a sibling incest story by a well-known writer, and I was reading it, and usually not something I read, but I was like, this is really well done. It's really respective. It doesn't seem like, oh yeah, they're fucking, there was like stuff going on in there and a lot of thought, and I was like, this is really good. So that's a gray area for me in this case, because it was done very well and not in a kind of crass way. So I think we all have that.
So what do you call it from the reading sense? Like WREAD? You got read. You were reading? You got read.
Read.
You got read, dude.
Oh, no.
He read you, man.
But yeah, I kind of, I don't know, it's interesting. I really enjoyed this story partially because I think it had the potential to be, sexist and stuff, and I don't feel it was really as well as it's because they're playing into these very kind of tropes and stereotypes about men and women, and like he's big and she's small and all these things, but they're doing it in a way.
They mistake. That's the other thing that creeped me out, by the way, was like
they're very aware.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to cut you off. I was going to go on a rant.
I guess they're doing it in a way that both parties are very aware that they are playing out these sort of roles.
Yeah.
And I think that helps make it okay. That, that they're aware of the script they're following, in this case.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know, that makes it okay. I think that makes it work, in a way that wouldn't necessarily, they weren't both so clued into, yes, this is really stereotypical, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of one of the fun things
you've
of porn.
expressed that before,
it's a
I
way
think.
of playing with, ideas like that, and having sex or doing porn or doing scenes in sex. And this almost is. I feel like this is towing the line, and partially referential because he's a porn star. This is, it's a kind of, it's a very porny setup, and so they're kind of playing this scene together. Yeah. What were you gonna...
It just creeped me out that, like, the first, like, real description of her is that she's, like, mistaken for a pup scout.
Right.
I thought that was creepy.
Yeah, and that's...
That also creeps me out.
I guess that's Kilby's, like, character. In her is this little Kendavi dog, which I don't even know if it's a real dog.
I met her. She is small. Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it.
That's kind of... I don't know. It's kind of... Yeah, I could see why it'd be creepy, but then there's a very... And luckily, we didn't get...
Out, and the thing is, like, I empathize it to a weird degree because I'm also mistaken for...
Yeah.
And even, like, especially when I was younger, and I was, like, 18 or, like 19 and actually getting carded by dudes I was interested in. Yeah. I don't know, the whole concept creeps me out now.
Yeah. No, I understand, and but I think she handled it well and naturally, sort of, like, no, I'm 23, and it wasn't, we didn't get the dreaded, I'm 18, which 18, often it feels in a lot of these stories like she used to be a kid, and then I changed it, we don't get that feeling.
In the story, her boyfriend likes the high school scenes, and the high school scenes always creep me out, I'm sorry. They always do. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even all that sexually active in high school.
I know. No, I think a lot of gay people weren't, because...
A little bit, but I wasn't, not much.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of gay guys and gals, honestly. I don't know if it's going to be as true, nowadays or down the road. But, yeah, it was because we had to figure out what the hell we were doing. And then B, we had to find somebody else to do it with.
Well, I actually kind of actively turned some people down.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I was just very... uncomfortable with the selection in the area, let's say.
Yeah, and I think when you're that age and figuring out who you are, you may not be very comfortable with everything either. So you may be like, I'm gay, but doing something to somebody else, that's a whole nother step.
Or more like, I just didn't like the selection.
There you go.
And the selection is really meager in Amish country.
It is.
Can I say?
Well, that's, I think, part of it, too, is, where you're dealing with, if you're dealing with, people in your high school or whatever, you've got a more limited selection, no matter where your high school is. And so
now I just sound like a picky eater.
No, it's okay. You're a picky eater. You devour men.
Yes, bore them up.
I guess...
We still haven't done a vor story.
We have not. I don't know, man.
Just because we don't like vor stories doesn't mean we shouldn't do a vor story.
That's true. And that's usually a big line for me because I don't get it.
It's not even like it's a line for me. It's like I'm not horrified by the concept anymore. It's just I don't get it.
That's it. Like the soft vor, quote unquote, where they get eaten whole, like, don't get it. Not arousing.
Don't get it.
The... like hard vor where they got like
chomped
torn up. That's just like
don't get it. Also
that's
don't get
that's just gross.
Explain it to me.
I can't.
No, I'm asking the people on the microphone.
Okay, people who are into vor.
Explain it.
We want a write in to hear why vor is great.
http: //www.furaffinity.net/user/tuses.
Oh no, we want him to reply.
That's me. No, I'm telling. Send me a note. And explain this shit to me.
I'd rather have them explain on the book club website so we can, all see it.
I don't think most of the explanations we're going to get for this are publicly suitable.
No, that's okay. I mean, you could post under a pseudonym. You can, like, VorFox58, or something. You can,
but
you can go to baddogbookclub.com.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd like to see that. I'm not sure, and I guess to kind of wrap up the story, I said, I'm not sure about Chapter 2. And I'm not sure I like Chapter 2 because of the way it starts off with this, Edgar, who was a nice guy, all of a sudden being like, yeah, I'm going to get you in trouble for having sex in my bathroom, and that's what my fear is. So I don't know what'll happen in Chapter 2. We'll have to see. But yeah, I thank you for writing it, Cinnamon, and
Yep, thanks, dude.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and it was really good him reading the last story. So I think we might have to have him read again sometime. He has a good reading voice. Gotta have Sparf read another one for us too sometime. Poor guy's suffering here. He actually buzzed me the other day and said, it's been a while.
When was this?
I don't know, a week or two ago. So, yeah, and we gotta find another thing for Spark. But we do, we're, kind of getting a little low in the slush pile, guys. So if you've got a story, either that you wrote, or if there is a favorite story that you read recently that you'd like to, send us a little note, we can ask the author about running it on the podcast. So do, send in a story, either that you wrote, or do point us towards one that you enjoyed.
Focus
and we'll
on
see about
the gay bears, the bears.
Yeah.
Lots of bear stories.
I think there should be otter stories.
Send the otter stories to Skips and the bear stories to me.
Yeah, lots of otters. Yeah. Just as long as they're not being done by the bears. If they're doing the bears, that's okay. They got to be top otters. None of these.
The top otter.
None of these minks. None of these minks in
See, I like bottom otters actually. I think otters are cuter as bottom because they have the thick tails. Because they have the thick tails, you can grab and bend them over by the by the tail.
Okay. So.
What? I'm not threatening you.
No, I don't.
I don't think I look very threatening.
I'm just kidding.
T-shirt aside.
You're gonna send me to Sandusky football camp.
Let's hit the shower, Skip.
Oh God. All right, guys. We'll have a good holiday and people doing volunteer work. Thank you, and we will. Well, I'll see you briefly next week with a story by Toonses.
Yep.
And then Sparf and I will be back in 2 weeks.
It's going to be it's the actual title of the story is Straight Humiliation Pulp # open bracket something. I forget. Yeah. But it's Straight Humiliation Pulp. It's Straight Humiliation Pulp. I mean, come on, isn't that?
All right.
Isn't that good?
That's good.
Yay.
Good. We'll be back. We're going to have a story by Toonses, and then in 2 weeks. We'll be broadcasting from Colorado, where Soren and I will discuss and tear apart said story by Toonses.
Yay.
Well, thank you guys. See you later.
Ciao.